We know the time suck that is searching for the perfect song for your wedding film. MusicBed has spent years collaborating with artists, bands, and composers to make it easier than ever for anyone to find the right song for their video.
With amazing artists like Chapters, Tony Anderson, and The Light, The Heat, MusicBed is the best place for wedding videographers to get licensed music.
Their subscription service was a life changer for me, especially since all of their subscription music is pre-cleared for every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, Love Stories TV, and my personal favorite, YouTube, all pre-cleared.
And if you are interested in a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription, head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. When you sign up, use the promo code HTFW and you will get your first month for free.
And it was one of those things where, like, zero context of what a wedding... I love that you're yawning, by the way.
Dude, I can't
so
not
this
do
is the
it.
thing, we're
yawn,
trying to hashtag Nick
every-
yawns.
Yeah, like
And cover
that's,
your mouth, bro.
dude,
Right? Okay.
Sorry, Nick yawn, it happens.
I'm out.
Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is Nick Miller and with me is my friend John Bunn. John, how you doing?
I'm really good. As usual, we just got through doing a really cool
Dude.
interview. Guess what today is?
Today, right now, is episode 50 of the How to Film Weddings
What?
podcast. 50!
How'd we get there?
I have no clue. We did a lot of stumbling and fumbling and saying ridiculous stuff like sticky buns and deep nuggets
true.
and whatever else. But
Feeling
we
nostalgic.
have made it, and we got someone who we really look up to and appreciate, even though, you know,
Big name.
we joked with him a bunch about, Aaron Tharpe of 31 Films, or Tharpe as he also says, but we joked with him, that we tried to reach out to all these other people, but that's just a joke. Like, we are super excited to have Aaron on the podcast today. He talks a ton about having a commercial brand as well as a wedding brand. He talks about building a team and what that looks like, and kind of what it looked like for him to go from one price point up a tier and continue just to talk about that stuff. A lot of great information. Super excited. So here is episode 50 of the How to Film Weddings podcast. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us on this 50th podcast episode. We really appreciate you coming on. You were the best we could find with the limited time that we had to find someone for episode 50. So thank you so much for coming on.
You went through all the good 50
Right, like
options.
we asked Matt Johnson to come back on for a fourth time. He turned us down. Kaylin and Christine turned us down.
Oh, yeah,
we
big time
we
turned
even
us down.
had an email to Peter McKinnon, and he talked with us a little bit, but he was like, "No, you're bald."
Out.
So you are the best we could find.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, that's what I expect. I really enjoy that role, actually. So I'm down with it.
Oh, good. Oh, well, thank you again. Just joking, but thank you for coming on for serious. For anyone that doesn't know, who you are in your business, why don't you just kind of give us a quick rundown of, who you are, how long you've been in business, your company name, and what you guys do and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I am Aaron Tharpe. Some people call me Tharpe. And I'm creative director here at 31 Films. We've been in business this is our 17th year in August.
Wow.
And I know I look like I'm 18 years old, so how's it possible? It's possible because my friend who's older started the company. I was still an infant, and I eventually grew up and joined his forces.
It's perfect.
But yeah, we're just a team here in Houston. There's 6 of us full-time.
Wow.
Joey Matthews founded the company, and then we've got Britton Pittman, Tina Cornelius, Ryan Clements, Oliver Ortiz. Charla is our accountant. She's actually amazing. So yeah, that's our
Legit
crew.
business, Nick.
Yeah.
Like they said, they have an accountant. Like
We
on
got an
their team.
accountant full time.
Like, wow, that's crazy.
I can't imagine. There's so much. He's such a big deal.
He is
honest.
such
I
a big deal.
I will say she's Joey's mom. So
Still
but
pretty cool.
She is a legit accountant, so it works out.
but paid on staff. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
So you have 6 full-time employees.
Yep.
So what kind of work are you doing? I mean, I know you do wedding stuff, but you also do some commercial stuff as well. So why don't you just kind of talk about that balance and that split, and how you're running your business?
Yeah, so we probably 5 or 6 years ago we launched Film Lab, which is like our separate commercial brand.
Okay.
And we could dive into why that became separate later, but we've been doing basically for quite a while. We've been about 50-50 on weddings and commercial work. It's probably shifted in the last year or so, maybe 2 years, where it's become probably 60-65% weighted on the commercial side. We haven't really like scaled back weddings intentionally. Like it hasn't been like we're gonna limit weddings as much as commercials just taken off, and so we're kind of like letting it kind of be free flowing at that point.
Cool. So yeah, you're just kind of going where the clients are and where they're paying you, and
And he's
what you
doing
guys-
small projects. I don't know if you know, he's just doing like little dinky brands and stuff like that. So no big deal at all.
Yeah, it's dinky stuff. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we can talk about that here in a little bit. But why don't you kind of give us a breakdown on your wedding business, how it stands today? Are you shooting much with that, or is it some other members of your team? Kind of what's your pricing model with that? Are you doing packages? Are you a la carte? And kind of what range are you in with price on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we do, we rotate, all of us shoot weddings. And like on 31 Film side, like I am like but a cog in the system. Like it's entirely a team situation. So we don't have any lead shooters. All 6 of us can lead. And so basically most weddings are 2 shooters, sometimes 3. So any given month, like we're probably each shooting 2 or 3 weddings on any given month. I'll occasionally go, maybe a month without shooting a wedding, and like that's awesome. We've got like just killer camera operators here that just like they're way better than I could ever be. So I don't mind like throwing Britton or Ryan or whoever on a different wedding instead of myself. And Joey's the same way. We're kind of always like looking to push someone more in the forefront to be able to like kind of take control and take over something. So that's been kind of an amazing growth opportunity, because there was a couple of years where Joey and I both shot, I think we both shot like 51, 52 weddings. And it was nuts. It was too much.
Yeah, that's insane.
It was too much.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw John go cross-eyed when you said that number.
He did.
I just am pretty much cross-eyed all the time, Nick. Thanks for pointing that out. I'm really a little nervous about people noticing that, but cool, man. Keep it going. Whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, I love the cross-eyed. Yeah, I mean that was like kind of early on. I think we did a year or 2 of that, and it was like we are not going to last past our 30s, doing that. And so there's been kind of this slow process to grow the brand and grow the group. And so that's what's nice. It's because we mix it up the way we do. It could be, we're on like a 3-week stretch here where we're producing 5 different national spots for commercial brands. And so you got weeks you're doing that. And then like probably the next week you're traveling somewhere for a wedding. And it's just like, it's really hard to experience burnout in that kind of environment.
That's really
because you see something different all the time. Even on the commercial side, we really try to push people into different roles and different projects when they want to go that direction, just because it helps you mix it up, helps you do something different. And we feel like that's kind of been like a key to longevity for us.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So
great.
to tag on to Nick, your wedding business, I mean, like in 2019, I guess, so roughly how many weddings are you guys shooting?
This will be our most on-brand wedding season ever. We have 31 weddings this year.
Come on. You should limit it to that.
So
That should be your thing.
that is the discussion now, because it just feels
Okay.
so magical.
It's right.
But then like we also got like another inquiry the other day, and it was like
It's like, oh, screw that. We'll actually do 32. 31 plus film.
31
We do at least 31 a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's our minimum.
Gotcha. And you're in Houston. Is
Yes.
that where most of your weddings are you going all over? Where are most of the weddings?
Yeah, like out of 31, I would assume 14, maybe 15 of those are out of state, or at least like Austin or something like that, like outside of Houston. It's usually about a little over half of our weddings are usually local, and we travel for the rest.
Did we talk too about kind of price range? What all's included
Oh,
inside of that?
Yeah, so we do. It's kind of like a hybrid a la carte system. So I really don't believe like someone should be forced to choose every element of their package. So we kind of built like packages that we felt like were like good starting points. Like, here's the coverage you need to create that edit. Here's the shooters we need to create that edit. So it's all based on the edit. You want to highlight or a short film or a feature, like this is the coverage we need for that. And then there's add-ons that we offer. Our average bookings are somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000.
That's awesome.
We start at a little over, I think we're at like 64 now. And I mean, destination work usually ends up anywhere between 16 to 22,000. So because of the way that we book plenty of destination work, that kind of like shifts a lot of our pricing that way anyways.
Mm-hmm. So the people that are listening are hearing like 20,000, like what, hold up. Like, I can't even relate. So I always like to bring it back. When you got going, kind of, 5 years in, that kind of thing, what were you kind of, what'd you start out charging? Like when you guys got going?
Oh, brother.
Do you remember that far back?
Well, he was one. What did the guys
I was 1 year old.
charge when you were one?
Right.
Years. It was multiple 1 years.
1 years old. I'm 1 years old.
So, I believe Joey did his first. I believe Joey did his first wedding for probably like $500.
Yeah.
And it was for like a friend.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it was one of those things where like zero context of what a wedding. I love that you're yawning, by the way.
Dude,
Nick yawn- so this is the thing. We're trying to like hashtag Nick yawns.
Yeah, like
and cover your mouth, bro.
Dude,
right? Okay.
Sorry. Nick yawn. It happened.
I'm out.
Yeah, you should be.
You're really boring, Aaron.
I know.
Tell us more. No.
I'm gonna leave.
Oh, there you go.
He's gone, ladies and gentlemen. Dropped one of my toys I was playing with. Darn it.
I got my little token. It's keeping me busy.
Okay,
There it is.
So Joey, $500 when he started out for a friend.
Yeah. Barely grew from there. I think within a year or two, it was probably like anywhere between 1,500 to 2,500 was kind of our going rate. And here locally, that was about where we needed to be locally. There weren't many options. And so that kind of just felt normal. And then we got a couple of weddings with high-end planners that were local. And there was kind of like, at one point during dinner, they were just sort of like, y'all aren't really charging enough. And we were like, oh, we could charge more.
Well, why not?
And we were thinking in the context of like, what could we have afforded for a wedding film? And that was kind of when it clicked that like, we are not our target market. I wouldn't be marketing to myself. Though we love to create films that we would love and we would enjoy. It was a switch that was like, oh, okay. Like, for some people, spending $10,000 feels like me spending $1,000. And me spending $1,000 might have felt huge, especially at that time. And for someone else, that's nothing, And so, that was kind of a reality check for us, where it was like, we needed to not look at it in such a limiting in a limiting way. And so we quickly went up to like 3,500. Probably by the next year, we were at 4,500. It was like almost like annually, we were making a pretty big jump. And I'd say the point that kind of like evened out for us was right around the 5,000 mark. That was kind of like where our changes began to be more gradual, because it felt like, maybe we had pushed, we kind of pushed to the limit of a market for a little bit. And so we didn't want to shake it up too much. So since then, it's kind of just been a gradual growth, more focusing on increasing our average booking and what the standard is that someone books than our entry price. I feel like entry price is just literally the thing that gets them in the door, but we're focused more so on this is what most clients will book.
Yeah, that's good.
I think a couple points that our listeners should take away. One, 31 Films has been around for 17 years. So them starting at 64 and charging locally around 10, but destination stuff, 15 to 20,000, they have built a brand. You guys have built a brand for the last, decade and a half.
Yeah.
So that you can do that. I think that is such a huge thing that our listeners need to continue to hear. And then the other thing is, we all have these limiting beliefs that we all have that we all buy into, and I remember that was a huge one for me. Was I can't afford this.
Yeah.
No one else will be able to. Well, there's, people out there that make a ton more money than me. And so I think that once you can step back, John, I know you've said that several times, when I realized that I couldn't afford me and that was okay, that's whenever this whole new world opened up to what we could charge and what we could make and what we could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said a whole new world. I'm like a Disney dad, so I couldn't help but just about to sing it. But due to licensing, I'm not going to sing it.
Yeah, we won't do it.
That's a good idea. It would be like that episode of Arrested Development when they did the banana stand thing, and they're like, Yellow Submarine would have worked great here, but we don't have Beatles money. So, Aaron, why don't you kind of talk for a second about some of the really cool commercial stuff? I know that this is a wedding podcast, but you do a bunch of cool commercial things. So why don't you just talk for a little bit about maybe some of the fun stuff you've done over the last year or two?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been crazy the last year. We've gotten into doing a lot of food spots, a lot of hospitality spots. So hotels and restaurants, a lot of their work. And that's totally different universe. A lot of tabletop lighting and, staging and design. And so that's been quite a blast. Even just we basically built an entire kitchen in our studio. We've got working grills, working oven that we actually can rig a camera inside.
That's cool.
It's kind of nuts in there. We built all these fake walls, that are shelving. So you can literally walk in. We have a kitchen built that we can shoot, and we've got 30 countertops we can throw in there. So that's sort of been, for a long time, it was a lot of lifestyle, very loose, handheld, raw storytelling. But we've really gotten into the set production recently, which was kind of surprising to us because early on, a lot of our connection was still with 31 Films. You guys tell a story well, you guys capture real moments well. Things that other people may do that feels contrived, you do it in a way that feels really genuine. And so that was our bread and butter for so many years, but now it's kind of been a whole transition, which is, it's nerve-wracking. You have to learn, it's a whole different industry. It's a completely different way of thinking and pricing and everything. It's its own world, a whole new world.
So if you can humor us, why don't you do the name dropping that you can do, give us some of the names of some of these companies that you're working with now.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with Carrabba's Italian restaurant. We just did some spots for Mattress Firm. We've done stuff for Phillips 66. Trying to think of others that we can say.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there's some boutique hotels, Valencia Group hotels that we've been doing a ton of lifestyle pieces for. And those actually are probably some of my favorite spots, just pure, total lifestyle. We're at a hotel for a day and a half, just setting up really fun situations with a bunch of actresses and actors. And
sounds great.
It's a blast. Those have been fun, and I love. We actually really tend to love those clients, the ones that are they're boutique. They've got money to invest, but they also fully buy into what we're gonna do. You're not just a name on the list, that the agency went through and was we need production company to show up and just make it happen. So. those are great because you got like a little more creative input for those.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So, we in our sorry kind of I wasn't yawning.
That's great. Sure, I was very interested in that point.
I mean,
Aaron.
I've been to a Carrabba's. Like, so if I actually watched television that had commercials on it, could like I see a Carrabba's commercial in Wichita, Kansas that you did?
Yeah.
Like, is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible.
That is neat.
You're probably gonna get.
I mean,
You're probably gonna get some soon. Mattress Firm, you'll probably get some spots soon that we did, which were really. Those were a blast. Like they were, they really gave us like a lot of creative control. We set up all these environments for like these families to interact in, and those will be great. I'm excited about those.
Sure.
Coming to a TV near you, Nick.
Yeah, I know. I'll need to like start watching television that has commercials and that kind of stuff.
That is the funny part because I don't have cable. I don't get to see a lot of them, but thankfully they do targeted ads, and I usually get targeted, so. It works out.
That's cool.
That's
cool. So we dropped in our Facebook group. John, Aaron, did you guys know we have a Facebook group?
No.
I didn't know that. No.
Whoa. Well, if you had no clue, just go to Facebook and search How to Film Weddings, and you can join our group. This past week, as we're recording this, we had 3,000 members in our group. 3,000. Pretty big deal.
That's a lot.
If we can get to 30, we're actually at 3,100.
3,100? That'd be
31.
Yeah.
We really are talking to 31 films. We were at 3,100 Facebook
Just saying.
members. Yeah. Anyways, so we dropped your picture in our Facebook group, Aaron, and we just said, hey, people, do you have any questions? What do you want to know from Aaron? And we got a bunch of comments. And I want to start with probably this most important one from Blake Polino, our friend, our editor. He says, how do you feel about the Rockets stealing Russell Westbrook, John?
He's asking me?
Well, I mean, he's asking you.
I feel like he's asking
Aaron
you.
has some thoughts about it.
Here's
but,
the thing.
I mean,
I'm from Oklahoma. Aaron's from Houston. We've messaged back and forth for a long time just about the basketball world.
the basketball.
And, Kevin Durant left us a long time ago. And
But
now
you're still bitter.
Westbrook has moved on in a good way. Like, I feel okay about it. But he's moved to Houston. And so now Oklahoma City's just left with nothing. And the best player that we've ever had just moved over to Aaron's hometown. So I'm a little salty about it.
Chris Paul's not nothing. I'll say that.
Okay. Well, okay. Great. Next question.
Next question. No. Oh man. Okay. So we had several questions in our group. Seriously, now shifting to wedding filmmaking and none of this silly stuff like basketball, but real questions about wedding filmmaking, and we got several kind of asking the same thing from like David Cartier, Aaron Siegel, Alexis Wajkoyo. I'm sorry, Alexis. I've met you in Seattle. You're really cool, but I don't know how to say your last name. But they were all basically asking about second shooters. How are you finding people to second shoot? How are you grooming them? How are you training them? How are you keeping them from, you teaching them and then they don't run off and, go start their own companies, that kind of stuff. So can you kind of talk about, bringing people onto your team and how you train them and how you keep them and your philosophy and thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah. So I will say, I'll preface with I am not, I don't trust people very easily. So I sort of go into an interaction or a relationship assuming that there's probably going to be some kind of, I kind of will assume the worst will happen. And that's a very personal feeling that, I try to keep a tap on. But, with that said, you kind of have to just get over that. It is what it is. And, all you can think about is what's in front of you. And so for me and for Joey and kind of how we've approached things, we want to be mindful that whoever we're bringing on feels like a trustworthy person, feels like someone that, honestly, the main thing we worry about is personality. So are they a good fit with us? Do we jive? There's plenty of times that we bring on an intern and they're great, they're solid at what they do, but you can just tell we think differently, we function a little differently. And so that's kind of been the way that we do step people into that role, is we do an internship first. So it's kind of like a mutual, hey, let's try it out. And so if it's someone who has experience, then like they're stepping into an internship where like, maybe the expectation is a little bit higher. But a lot of our crew, we just train from the ground up, and that's worked in the past as well. I will say a lot of times you bring someone on who you're going to train from the ground up. Sometimes that means they're not really going to be integral into your role and like for another year or two. At least with our standards, that's sometimes how it is. So lots of times we bring someone on who we're training. We basically know we're going to be investing in them for a long time. We know these like roles that we could use them in for now, but we're not going to just throw them into a wedding and say like, hey, you're a second shooter for us. We're pretty picky about who we've got on our weddings. So, giving it time, not really stressing, like, are they going to go start their own business or are they going to go do their own thing? Because the reality is like some of them will, and that just is what it is. But for you to not grow because of that fear, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and you're doing yourself a disservice. So we found, 6 of us that like we are dedicated, like we're here. None of us like are thinking about the next step. Like this is what we're focused on. We've had other people that like were here, they killed it, they were amazing. And then they just felt like they wanted to go somewhere else. Like their personality drew them to do something different. And like we got that, and like we'll still kind of support them in that as well. But we really don't like training at weddings. There's something about like you can see the photographer who's training someone, and like they're spending half of the session kind of telling them what they're doing, and I do think that's valuable. We will bring that intern on to basically assist, but we're probably going to do all of our training after the wedding or between, like during some kind of break, to talk about, like we'll kind of recap. But for us, like that client paid for us to be like fully immersed into their wedding day and telling their story.
Oh, that's good.
So that's what we're going to focus on. But we will, we've had times where we wanted to use someone as a second shooter. We might bring them on to assist, or we'll just put them as a third camera, knowing that we don't need it. The client didn't pay for it. And we're just going to later go through their footage with them. As far as the client knows, like they were just there working for us. Like we weren't training them. We did give them direction. But later on, we're going to sit with their footage. We're going to watch everything. We're going to talk through what would work for our edits, what wouldn't. We might watch some of our footage and show them like the differences. Like, hey, here's how we would have approached that. And we do a lot of training here as well throughout the year. So someone's got a new thing they're working on, new technique, or an editor notices like, hey, I've noticed like everyone's been doing this and it really doesn't work. And so we basically as a whole group are going to work on that together. And we'll do the same thing with like interns or anyone that we're training at that point.
So tell me, what CRM do you use? If you're not sure or you don't know what a CRM is, I'm about to save you a lot of time and therefore money. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Basically, a CRM is an online service that helps you better serve your clients. HoneyBook is both mine and John's CRM of choice. We absolutely love it. HoneyBook allows us to do all of our correspondence, contracts, and payments all in one place. One of the features that I love is the automated workflow. We all have emails that we send out to all of our clients, right? At 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, the week of. All of us do it. Automated workflows make it so that those emails can go out automatically. Since I don't have to take time to, 1, remember to send them out, and 2, to write them, I save time and make more money by working more efficiently. Are you interested in saving time on the business side of things? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook for a free 1-week trial. Also, because the Honeybooks really like me and John, we can give you $200 off of your first year, and that also comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook to start saving lots of time in your business. Oh yeah, legally I have to tell you that John and I are affiliates of Honeybook.
Well, my question, so there's a lot of people that are listening that obviously don't have a team like you guys, like bigger, more established. So like for the listener out there that is maybe a solo shooter or shoots, getting going in the first few years, do you have any tips to just like finding those people, how to get them into your ecosystem, and then kind of like maybe some pointers for like the way to give them vision for what you're doing, as opposed to just like here, show up, but like how do you paint a vision of like your company's brand, and how do you maybe even draw those people in if you're in year 2 or 3 of business and you're like, man, I really want to grow, but I don't know my practical steps from here.
Yeah, I mean that's hard. It's hard to do, honestly. And it probably takes a lot of work on your part on the front end. Like something we did early on is we basically went and built like, here's like a shooter's list. Like in a wedding day, here's what each shooter is expected to get. And it's kind of like, we'd have it divided. Here's our necessities. Like we have to have this. Here's the bonus material that like, if you get all of those necessities and we can get these, let's go for that. And then there's like the pure risky shots. Like you've covered all your bases. Let's do this now. And that's a lot of how we actually approach a wedding day. We know how to get everything we have to tell a story. And then we get all of the elements that are like a little bit more risky to get. And so we have that. We're probably going to sit them down, show them our work, talk through like, what that is in that story that reflects with our brand and our vision. We're probably going to shoot with them a little bit and show them like, hey, here's how I would do this. Let me see you do it. And they might shoot and you give them, some kind of direction. The thing that's tricky and, we've had to find a way to walk that balance has been teaching someone else your style, especially if it's like the brand is you. It's like, here's how I see things. Here's how I film things. Here's how I edit things. That's really hard to impart to someone else who doesn't just instinctively already feel that. And we actually early on, a lot of the staff we brought on who really stuck were people who had their own studios but didn't want to, or they freelanced and didn't want to. But we knew their work was already we respected what they were doing, already. So like Britton is one of those. He's on staff with us still, but he used to have his own studio, and he was pure freelance. And he was like, "Look, I don't enjoy like having to run a business and like chase work like that, and I also want to be part of a team." And he really loved what we do, and we thought his work was beautiful, and it was like perfectly in line with what we do. But you could still get someone who they've got that experience. It's a little different, but like that the possibility is there to really like kind of hone them in on your brand and your vision. But you do have to get good at conveying like here's what we look for in a wedding day. Here's what matters to us. For us personally, like it's all about moments. We'd rather catch the moment than have a really epic shot. That's essentially how we feel. Now, we do try to walk the balance of having a beautiful cinematic experience with a documented moment, and that's hard to do. But yeah, for us, like there's times where we'll trash a shot that is killer composition, like it's epic movement, the gimbal's doing something ridiculous, and you're just like, wow, that was like technically that was really difficult to pull off. But the moment wasn't there, and it didn't fit, it didn't fit the story, and it didn't like further that story. And so that's the hardest thing to convey to someone who's learning, and they're just thinking like, how do I make this look awesome? And we're trying to say like, awesome is great, but like make it look meaningful, make it look personal. Like those are the things you have to touch on.
My wife went to school to be a graphic designer, and one thing that her teachers taught her, which I have come to learn, is because it looks cool is not a good enough answer. Like, we want to do this stuff because it looks cool. Well, no, why did you do that? Like, why did you stick with this? Why did you do that? Having that reason why, that matters a whole lot. And I think one of the things you're saying is that communication is like huge whenever you're training up someone. I think that so many of us just get into this when we're looking for a second shooter, maybe just to fill in, but we're not communicating very well. And then we get back what they shot, and you're just like, well, I don't like any of this stuff. But how much did you talk to them? You didn't explain your style. One thing, as you've been talking about this too, whenever we had Jordan Bunch on, who runs Film Mavericks and Lady Bird Studio, and he was talking about his shooters.
Lady
and stuff.
Beard,
Lady, is that what I said? Lady, whatever.
Now that's
Lady
a
Bird.
name.
There you
Lady
go.
Beard. There you go.
He
Peter.
was like, I pay my shooters well. Like, you don't want them to run off. Like, pay them well. Like, if there's people in your town, I can't keep a consistent shooter. Well, how much are you paying them? Like, that's a big thing. And then too, he was like, I'm okay if my shooter goes off eventually and starts his own business, because I have built a good relationship with them. I have paid them well, and I am training them to better themselves later in life.
Sure.
So I think that everyone is going to move on, because at the end of the day, Wild Oak Films is my business. It's not this person that I'm hiring's business. So I'm going to care about it more than they ever will. So, John?
Well, I think, too, what stood out to me, what Aaron was saying just then, is about, like, for me, like, when I hired Nina, our photographer, like, she's an excellent artist, but hated the business side of it. And it, like, makes her skin crawl to, like, try to sell or try to, like, it's just not something. And so when you're looking for these people, if you're looking for second shooters, to all these people that have asked these questions, you need to know kind of your core values is what you're, kind of person that you're looking for. But, like, be looking for people that are like, have a great heart, number one, that you can train and that are teachable more than even that are good at shooting. But then people that are artistic. That's hard to say. They are artistic, but they don't want to, like, run their own thing. And so, like, and like what Nick's saying, it's like you can't ever have somebody love your business or treat it like it's yours completely. I know Gary Vaynerchuk says that a lot. He's just like, no one's going to run your business like you. Yeah. You can't expect them to care as much as you. I mean, sometimes people can, but, like, I mean, for the majority, it's like somebody that cares 80% as much as you is, like, a rare find.
Yeah.
So.
Sure. Well, and I think, like, it is rare. Like, that's probably what Joey and I have, though. We were really great friends. He was my best man at my wedding, and he filmed it because he's an all-star like that. But, like, for me, like, I love supporting his vision. I love making his dream happen. For me, it is like, let me get behind what you want to do, and I'll help push it. And there's a lot of things that I took off of his plate because those weren't things he was comfortable with. And so I think there are ways where, like, he totally, I mean, it's really gracious as a boss, but, like, he totally will give me the keys and say, like, run with that. And and so that makes me want to, like, you're not feeling like you're just like doing a task. You feel like you have ownership. That's and huge. So he's huge on giving us all ownership, paying people well. Like, that's a massive key. I do think in this field, the people you hire, they're probably looking for one of two things. They're either looking for security, or they're looking for fulfillment. And it's possible to provide both of those things, but sometimes fulfillment looks like, I just want to do everything. I just want to do something different. I want to do something else. That's the person who might just, like, grow and get to a point where they're like, hey, I want to try something different. Mm-hmm. And for us, like, we don't want to burn that bridge. We do want to create a relationship that when they go on, like, they still look to their experience here as something that launched them. But, you kind of find someone that's sort of in the middle there. Like, they have artistic fulfillments that they're trying to get to. But, like, for me personally, for instance, I am not, like, my identity isn't in, like, what I create. I enjoy creating. I have a blast creating with the people that I create with. But at the end of the day, like I'm putting food on the table for my family. This is a job I love. It's a workplace I love. It's easy to support the vision because like it's an atmosphere that I can enjoy and everyone else enjoys. Yeah. So I think if you've got a workplace that like people are going to love, if they're going to love getting behind your vision, it makes it easier to not worry about that, like what happens next. If you're going to be a taskmaster who's, penny pinching or like, checking in on every minute of time to make sure that there's like output, you're going to burn that person out and they'll leave. And you can't blame them for that. Like no one wants to work in that situation. So for me, like create a situation where people are going to, like, who would you love to work for? Like be that boss, like be that kind of a lead. And the people you bring in, as long as you've communicated with them, I don't think it becomes a problem at that point.
Yeah. That's all great stuff.
Take notes, people. You hearing these things?
Yeah,
just write them down. Hit that 30-second backwards button like 6 times and then listen again.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to another question. James Blankenfield asks, he wants, any tips that you might have for breaking into, newer price points and newer tiers. He's in like the $3,500 range currently, and all of his photographers that he knows are kind of in that range of the planners, but he wants to, get in the 5 to 7 where, he has where his people aren't working there, so he needs to build new relationships with new vendors and all of that kind of stuff. So, what's your approach, or what suggestions would you give to him as he tries to move up, in pricing?
So a technique we've used pretty much all throughout our existence, once we really became aware of like what we could charge, is really just beta testing higher prices for years or months where we're pretty booked. We don't need another wedding. It's kind of like a nice way to like test it.
That's a good one.
And so, you'd have a year where you're pretty much booked. You feel like you've got all of the calendar filled out, and you get one inquiry that you're just like, well, go for it, but like, here's our prices. We've got a separate price list for that. And maybe they say no, and that's fine because you didn't need it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they say yes, and you're like, oh, we could charge that much? Like that's a thing. And within that wedding, undoubtedly you're going to like lead to more clients who see it, who are in that range. You might work with a planner eventually or a photographer who's above the range you're currently working in. And so that's been a way that we've kind of gradually broken into newer price ranges, is beta testing new prices anytime that, like, if it sounds complicated, if someone sends you a wedding that you're like, I don't want to film 4 18-hour days, like in a row, and like I don't want 5 of us. Well, like just build a price that is so outrageous that if they said yes, you're like, okay, we're doing it. But if they said no, then like you're fine with it.
Yeah.
Your business didn't fall apart.
I did, like, for so long, I would be like just almost terrified to just ask somebody for a higher price. But like when it comes down to it, even if you're not the expert of all experts, if you're already booked, your time is valuable.
Yeah.
Like that is what the market is telling you. Mm-hmm. And so you may not even think you're worth that much. But if you've got 25 weddings and you wanted to book 20, I'm not one that is ever going to be like, I'm fully booked, but I am going to be one that's like, and I give Nick a hard time about it because earlier this year he was like, I'm booked, and he's booked like 5 since.
Even though I've booked like 3 since then, even after I said I was fully booked.
Every time he says, I booked
like
a wedding,
a higher
I'm like,
and higher price, so.
And that's the thing though, is like getting back to like, okay, if my price is $4,000, I've got 25 of these booked, I only really wanted to do 23.
Yeah.
Like there is a price that it's worth it. And because the market speaks, you can tell that to the couple. You don't have to say, I'm raising my price, whatever, but it's like, hey, our calendar's very booked. We have a couple of spots open, but our starting price is $5,500. We can send over details if so, and just have a separate pricing page or a separate link that you send them. There's nothing shady about that. That's legit. Like, I mean, if you're going to, you know, if there's a big concert downtown and you want a hotel, well, the prices go up because there's a lot less supply and demand.
That's how hotels and airlines all work.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's one of those deals where if you are booked, that is the best time to do it.
100%.
And so like James being in the 3,500 range, most likely he's already getting lots of weddings. You know, he's kind of getting out of that like beginning model. And so I remember that, you know, going from like the 3,500 up to the 5,000 price range was like,
that was a harder range.
You know, it's harder to get there, but once you're there, and then what happens, like you're saying, is you do get a couple people that say yes. And then that's where you can start showing those weddings a little bit more. You can do what we talk about a lot on the podcast, where you're really taking care of those vendors and creating same-day edits or doing different things like that.
Yeah, I will say what has really helped us, you know, kind of move up. Sorry, Aaron, our guest, I'm probably cutting off.
You're good.
It was...
Aaron's fine. Nick, you just talk.
Right. Like, we knew that we wanted to raise our prices, and so we started putting our packages together in a way that wasn't something that we were currently offering. But after we had done it for 6 months, then we offered this new thing that was at a higher price point, but we already had 6 months of proof that people loved it, so they were talking about it. They did all this and this, and so that was one of the ways that we were able to raise ours.
Yeah, we've done similar with anytime we're thinking of a new package or a new edit. Yeah, we might kind of slip that in early and then, you know, start offering it and just see if people bite. I do think that between that 35 to 45 range, for some reason, like 35 is the top of the bride who's basically spending everything on you. Like that's the one who's like, this is like all of the money I have saved for this wedding. Like I'm going to be spending it on you. And so that is the line. And then 45 is kind of like the lower end of your next market, like the high-end market, that kind of like mid-level high-end. So I remember that being a pain point, like that one switch to 45. But we did it thinking we were going to book fewer weddings. Like we were like, hey, like let's raise our prices, book fewer weddings. I think once we got to 5,000, like that was the year we did like 50 weddings.
Right.
Like it was like we found a whole different market we didn't know existed. We were afraid like our 40 weddings we've been doing, they're not going to be able to book us. But then once we became present in that 5,000 range, this market that was like excluding us because of our price now was looking at us. Because there's a lot of clients who they're going to see your price at 35 and say, I want the best, and that's not going to be it.
Right. I was going to say there are people that, you know, whenever you're at, you know, the high end of the, you know, kind of lower tier, they'll look like, nope, you're too expensive. But the same applies whenever you get up high enough and they're like, at 3,500, some people might like, oh, you might be really good, but I'm not going to hire you because you're cheap and therefore you're not as good. You know, like that kind of stuff. So
that's why I'd say if you went from 35 to 4,000 and you start hearing you're too expensive, I'd say give it time, because you're too expensive for the market below you, but you're not too expensive for the market above you. And so, like, to me, you're gonna have to lose some of those older clients that you had to get to another market of clients. And that's just something to keep in mind. I know people can panic. They hear like you're too expensive and they're like, all right, I'll do it for half. And you know, like that's just not how it works. You know, like the only way you're going to move up in your market is to make like a position that this is our value. And obviously your work has to reflect it. You know, if everyone in your market, because realistically for 10 years of our existence, there weren't really any other options in Houston. Joe Simon was in Austin. You had Mason Jar out in Waco, but there weren't really like options around Houston at all. And so that actually was harder for us. Like we couldn't be competitive. It was like, you guys are 5,500 and the next person is 1,200. And so like it's such a drastic difference, which we were fine with because we lived on a kind of a little island. But it also created probably in us a little bit of complacency. And so over the past handful of years, like a lot of great studios have come in, they're charging what we charge. And that's amazing for the market, like that's brought everything up. So it becomes the norm to spend $5,000-$6,000. We've had planners we've worked with for years who realized that our prices were like, they were shocked whenever they realized, oh my God, your prices are the same as this other studio, who they saw as like, kind of like option B. And so like, for some reason in their head, they were like, well, if they're 6,000, you guys must be 8,000. And so like, that was and even that for us, we were like, well, time to raise our prices, that's where the market's going. We understand that. So even now we're in like a gradual shift in our pricing because of how the market has grown in Houston and Texas, as well as in destination work. Like it's something where people are used to spending that, and they're expecting to spend that.
Yeah. On the heels of that, Kalen Rome from White and Reverie, his name's Kalen. He's just a dude. He said, and this kind of on the heels of it, do you price differently for high-end luxury weddings and or for certain wedding planners, knowing the type of involvement and expectations there will be for those specific weddings?
Yes and no. That's it.
All right, next question. Okay. There you go, Kaylin.
No, so I guess this may be totally unique to our experience with high-end clients. The more high-end the client, the less involved they tend to be in their wedding film. Like someone who spent $4,000 on their video probably is going to want to have like 6 phone calls beforehand, want to meet in person. They're going to want to like have input on their songs. For some reason, someone who spent $10,000, they're just like, I hired the best. Like, I can't wait to see it, but I don't like, they really like respect that. Like, my planner said that we needed to hire you, or we loved your work, so just do what you do. Like once a year, we'll get someone who's just like super involved. And we're really lucky. Like most of the photographers we work with, the planners we work with, they're really amazing. Likewise, on that higher end, we tend to be working with people who get it. Like they know. I will say, and this is honestly something that Kaylin and I talked about last time he was in Houston. We met for coffee, and we were talking about high-end clientele and just kind of the differences. And like, it's sometimes hard. Like there's a degree with the high-end client where it's like, I wish they would want to be more involved, or I wish that like they were more bought into every aspect of, like their story. And like, sometimes it's just not the case. I wouldn't say we feel like the help, but there is a point where someone spent so much money on their wedding and so much money on you that like, you're literally just like, you're going to do your job. You're going to do it well. You're not going to like create drama. And as long as you're really easy to work with, like that planner is going to like love you, and they're going to tell their next client like, hey, you want a really amazing film and people who aren't going to intrude on your entire day, like you need to talk to them. So that is something that's totally different. Like getting those clients with like a million personal touches and like super intimate scenarios, like sometimes that's harder with a high-end client. And so we have to walk the balance so that we can deliver a product that's consistent, that feels on brand, even though sometimes we're not going to get just epic everything from them. Like a lot of times we're just looking for the moments. It's kind of hilarious how often we get, for some reason we have like a string of weddings where like the father of the bride gives just an epic speech. And it's funny because we'll get Facebook messages that are like, tell me how you get dads to give those speeches. I'm like, Dad is he's a CEO who, has a speechwriter on staff who wrote this with him, he practiced for 6 months, and like, we didn't control those things. And we got like lucky in that, we were there, we were professionals, but like, yeah, like that's kind of, there's a lot of what we do. Like, it's like being prepared to capture magic, but like you can't always like the magic isn't always there. Sometimes you have to like have some tricks to create it.
That was one thing is you were talking about that the higher end like people maybe not wanting to be involved. That Sarah and Rick Pendergraph, who we talked to a few episodes ago, you know, she's, you know, they're very emotional in their films and, you know, raw and vulnerable and stuff. And they're in the start at 65, you know, go up from there. And she's like, we actually have planners that say, we're not going to spend this amount of money on you because they just don't want to do that. Like, which is just exactly what you were saying. Real quick before we move on, I know you have some workshops and some. Oh, did you have something you wanted to add in there?
Like even to add to that, occasionally we'll get a planner who like they don't want us to communicate with the client. Like all communication goes through them, so we can't. We have our questionnaires. We want to do a call, and it's like that's all going through the planner, and so it we'll push back when we can. And we really like outline like, hey, here's what it takes for us to do what we do. But we also know like, hey, that's like kind of the ropes. Like we want to be in this market. Like we need to understand that. We need to be professionals about it. Yeah. And make something magical, even if like we're meeting the client right before she puts her dress on. You know, like we're just gonna be be cool for her to be around, and like we're gonna make some magic happen.
Yeah. That's great. I know you have some workshops and some courses and stuff that we're going to talk about here in a second. But before we jump into that, what's your camera setup on the wedding day? Like, what are you sporting at usually weddings these days?
All right, we are still in the museum with the A7S II. We are waiting with bated breath for something to happen. I mean everything we shoot for weddings, A7S II. We still have a couple of A7S1s that we'll occasionally throw on a gimbal or as a safety camera. We use Zeiss Contax glass. We typically are shooting with like Pro Mist filters on our lenses. We like with those lenses with that filtration, we're going for something that isn't pristine. Like we love the character of old vintage lenses. We love imperfections. Like that's very much what we lean. We got some Sony glass early on. It was way too sterile. It was like we just had to like ditch it. And so that's our setup. Like we're mostly handheld. I'd say probably 90% of the day we're handheld. Tripod for speeches and ceremony. And then we got a gimbal camera that that we basically make happen when we need to. We've been using the Zion crane, and we just got the Ronin SC. Which is we've yet to make. We're still balancing it and figuring out what we want to do with it.
I know I've messaged you over the past, like, what lens is that? Like, how are you getting that look? How are you getting that color? And I mean, those Zeiss lenses that you have, I mean, if you haven't watched your, if someone out there hasn't watched your films, go check them out, obviously. But there is just this, like, originality and this, like, buttery goodness of, like, imperfection, like what you're saying, but it just looks so on brand for, like, it's your film. Basically,
yeah. We try to go for a pretty filmic approach. Like we've toyed around with like grain textures. We haven't really found one that like just felt like it nailed it. But we'll even shoot some film occasionally, 16 millimeter or 8 millimeter. But like that's just we kind of all go back to that. Like there's just something about the imperfections that makes it feel real.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Love it.
That's great. So, just I don't know. As we're recording this, maybe a week or two ago, that Alex and Whitney over at Sculpting with Time have announced a workshop that they are doing this October. Vision Quest.
You got it.
Yeah. Got it. John kept on messing up the name. I'm not going to do that
because I'm Quest. I said it right the first time.
So, anyways, Aaron, you are one of the speakers that's going to be there, along with a host of others: Henry Martins, Jordan Bunch, Sharon Calafore. I said that wrong.
Sharon Calafiore, but that's okay.
Yeah. Sharon. Anyways, Sharon. Yeah. Joe Simon is going to be there. So why don't you just kind of take a second and talk about Vision Quest and kind of your purpose with it and when it is and how can maybe people sign up if they want to do that.
Yeah. So Alex called me and basically was like, "Hey, like I'm thinking of doing this thing. I think it's going to be pretty rad. he had a few names kind of tossed around as like possibilities. And he was like, would you be interested? And I was like, I could do that. Originally, it was going to be like totally different location. It was going to be a little bit more difficult to get to. And I think that just logistics kind of switched around. Found a really great setup in Austin. But yeah, for a while, like the team was like Team Texas. I mean, it was like before Sharon jumped on, I mean, it was like all Texas basically, which was kind of amazing. I do think I think he's got some stuff up his sleeve that might be, additions, as in the lineup. But I'm going to let him deal with all of that. But yeah, I'm basically probably going to be speaking on, big business longevity, a little bit on like pricing structure, that kind of stuff. Just really talk about what it takes to, have a business that can kind of stay towards the top for 15 plus years and, kind of reinvent itself as it goes without losing its identity. That's a lot of the things that have sort of like stuck with us. May get a little bit more into team building as well. But I'm still working with them to basically, with every other speaker, we're kind of making sure like all the topics are covered. All the topics are,
Right. So, yeah. So that's October 20th
Correct.
through 22nd in Austin, Texas. If you'd like more information, you go to visionquest-2019.com. You can sign up there.
It's going to be good.
Anything else about that? Anything
No,
else
it's going to be
missed?
rad. The locations, like, it's going to be really fun. The after party elements, like, it'll be a good time, and you're going to learn some amazing things from some really great people. I'm really excited. Like, Joe was there at the beginning of our company. Like, we were all kind of connected then. Sharon was there. And then, like, Henry and Alex, like, over the last several years kind of came up. And so it's, like, it's pretty cool because I've felt connected to both of those groups in different ways. And so
that's cool.
That's kind of a fun aspect of it that I'm pretty excited about, just connecting with all of them, being able to share a stage, hopefully say something useful and beneficial.
It's going to be awesome. Like, I mean, I'm looking at it like, it looks so good. I mean, everybody there is like, my favorites to watch. I mean, it's definitely an incredible lineup. I know, too, that you guys did something over at the Academy of Storytellers. Why don't you tell the listeners about that a little bit? I know you have like a code maybe for them, that kind of thing. So why don't you tell us about that?
With Together Workshops, we did basically a wedding workshop as well as a Sony workshop. And that was last year. Dang, I think that was 2 years ago. Time flies. But yeah, we basically spent an entire day. A lot of it was talking about like a little bit of our pricing and business structure, but also just our approach, how we approach a wedding day, how we approach our business. We also got into a little bit of editing tricks and picture profiles in our Sony cameras in the Sony workshop. But yeah, we have a discount code, 31films31. So 31films31, and that'll get you 31% off. So we joked.
Nice. And where did they go to find that?
academyofstorytellers.com. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. And we'll link it all in the show notes.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
We'll link everything else in the show notes. So, man, we have been talking for about an hour. Aaron, we are so glad that you jumped on the podcast for episode 50 of our podcast. Such a cool thing. Before we sign off, people want to follow your work. You want to follow you. Where can they find your information and find you?
Yeah.
And all that
So
stuff?
Instagram, it's just at 31films. We also have at FilmLabTX for Texas. That's our commercial work. So you can follow both of those accounts and kind of follow along. Facebook, same thing, 31films and FilmLabTX. My username's Tharpe. If you want to see pictures of cute kids and coffee and barbecue and stuff.
Okay. Well, cool. Thanks again so much for imparting your wisdom. You've been doing this for a little while, and you have a lot of knowledge that you're willing to share. So thank you so much for doing that. Listeners, make sure you check out visionquest-2019.com for this amazing workshop that Aaron is going to be a part of, and also his course over at... I forgot the website.
academyofstorytellers.com.
There, academyofstorytellers.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. Share this video with someone that might like it. If you're listening to us on a podcatcher, rate and review us so that other people can find us. Follow us on Instagram. Join our Facebook group. Just search How to Film Weddings on Facebook. Watch some Rockets basketball this fall, maybe, if you live in Texas and not in Dallas. I'm not a big NBA guy. Anyways, thanks so much for listening, and until next time, we will see ya.
See ya.